Thank you for attending today's summer school session, Creating Successful Bookstore Crawls and Passport Programs, where our panelists will be talking about the successful programs they've created or participated in and the lessons they've learned along the way. Like I said, the session is being recorded. Before we get started, I want to first thank Brian and Heather, my counterparts at the Pacific Northwest Booksellers Association and Mountains and Plains Booksellers Association, for continuing to co-host and co-create these yearly summer school sessions. And of course, I want to thank this year's summer school sponsor, Source Books, who taught a fantastic session last month on genre fiction. You can find that recording of the session on all of our websites. Thank you, Source Books, for your support. It is greatly appreciated. Second, I want to remind everyone in this room that the Sherman Antitrust Act, or about the Sherman Antitrust Act, which reminds us that even though this is an idea sharing space, we're still competitors and need to refrain from the following: discussion of price or pricing policies, discussion of boycotts, and discussions of dividing up a market, which I don't really see happening here, but just in case. Let's see. Perfect. Finally, this is a panel, like I said earlier, but there will be time for you all to ask questions or share ideas. So please participate. When we get to questions, you're welcome to go off mute or enter your questions in the chat for a Caliba staff member to ask on your behalf. My coworker Valentina, like I said before, is in the chat, and she can help you with any non-session related questions if you have them. All right. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome our panelists: Amy Hesselink from La Playa Books in San Diego, California; Dara Landry from Class Bookstore in Houston, Texas; and Allyson Howard from Invitation Bookshop in Gig Harbor, Washington. Thank you all for being here today and sharing your experiences and expertise. I'll start off by asking each of you to introduce yourself more and describe the event that you participate in. I will just pick one of you based on your position on the screen and go from there. Allyson, you're at the top, so I'll start there.
All right. Hi, I'm Allyson Howard. I own Invitation Bookshop in Gig Harbor, Washington, like Hannah said, and we coordinate the South Sound Book Crawl. I'm excited because I have actually seen at least one of our partner stores in the session, which is kind of fun to have one of our stores with us. So we started the South Sound Book Crawl in 2023. It currently encompasses 11 stores throughout the South Puget Sound region, everywhere from Bremerton, if you're familiar with the geography, Bremerton to Sumner to Olympia. We are expecting to have hopefully 13 stores in 2026, so we are growing. The way our crawl runs is we have 9 days for people to visit all 11 stores. Everybody gets, I brought visual aids. Everyone gets a passport. So on the front, they get their stamp when they visit. And then if you go to all 11 stores in 9 days, you get a 20% off one-time discount at each of the stores. And so the back has the stamps for redeeming their discount. It's kind of cool. I don't know what other people see, and I really should be tracking how many we get back. But what we're finding is a lot of people will save them for like the holidays. So it actually pushes holiday traffic to us. Some people will run the full crawl in a day and then the next day like go and use all their discounts. So it, boosts that weekend a little bit more. We do start on Indie Bookstore Day. That's also relevant to mention. So in terms of kind of like what we do in terms of the management of our book crawl, so most of it happens within like kind of our in-house staff with Invitation Bookshop. So we design the passport. We handle all the accounting. We do sell merch to help support the crawl. So actually, it matches the passport. So once you have this done, the merch is actually a pretty easy lift because they kind of go together. And so we sell merch on Bonfire, and those funds go to offset all the printing costs for the passports. We also do a swag bag drawing for people who complete the full passport. So there's a prize drawing at the end of the 9 days. We have social, like, I'm trying to think all the different things we do. So the Bonfire sales also go to help offset the cost of our website hosting. So we just handle all that in-house, and then at the end, each store kind of reimburses us 1/11th, and I think last year it ended up being like 20 some dollars a store. So it actually is a pretty affordable thing to do to drive traffic. One of the great things we did this year and last, but I think it really took off this year, is we tapped into local silent book clubs, and we partnered with them to try to coordinate meetups for people to start the crawl in various locations, since that's kind of like your built-in, reader audience. And so this year we did some incentive book plates that we also sent to them for that. I'm trying to think if there's any details about our crawl that I left off. I can't think of any off the top of my head. So happy to answer questions once everybody's done. But yeah, that's the South Sound Book Crawl kind of in a nutshell.
Perfect. And I'm sure if something else pops up when Amy and Dara are talking, you can pop in. Amy, I'll pass it on to you.
Hi, I'm Amy Hesselink. I'm the manager of La Playa Books, which is a new and used bookstore in San Diego, California. Those who are familiar with San Diego, we're in Point Loma. And we've been around this is our 9th year. The San Diego Book Crawl was begun in it began in 2017 with like a proto crawl, and that was with the Library Shop, which is part of it's a nonprofit bookstore that's part of the San Diego Central Library. And then along with them, it was Verbatim Books, a used bookstore, and Blue Stocking Books, also a used bookstore. And it started very, very simply with a tiny little passport that was like a 8.5 by 11 sheet, and you would, get that stamped, and then there was, I believe, a gift card at the end. Now we are at 14 stores, and it's a 3-day crawl. It starts on Independent Bookstore Day. We have sponsors, we have merch. It's insane, and it's like better than Christmas for us. And I hope that there's some of our San Diego stores on this program today, because I just want to thank them all. It's a wonderful team building and community building event, and we start usually kind of organizing a little bit before Christmas, and then it really takes off after that. I just want to give a shout out to the stores that started it, to the Library Shop and Verbatim Books and Blue Stocking. And then especially right now, we one of our bookstores is from UCSD. So they're a powerhouse who help out quite a lot. Our store is 1,000 square feet. We have 4 part-time staff. So we participate, we don't organize, but we do our best to keep up. And now that it's such a large event with so many participating bookstores, we're at the last meeting, we had the wrap-up meeting, we decided to do kind of little like, sort of focused bookstores, somebody who would do social media, somebody who would work on the passport more, trying to spread the lift of putting this whole thing together. So we have an amazing passport. I think Hannah put in, hopefully in the chat or somewhere, there's a link to a PDF I made with some just basic background information about the San Diego Book Crawl, and then some pictures of the passports that have been made. And the passport, they go to all the stores. They make a $10 purchase. These are the participants doing this. They make a $10 purchase at each store, and they gather prizes along the way. And what's amazing to me about this book crawl is that the amount of people that would get in the store, for us usually, and we're one of the stores that's small and further out of the beaten track. So we get, over 1,000 people through the store on the first day, which is insane, but we somehow do it. And then it's kind of half of that on Sunday, and then like some stragglers, but people actually will start their crawl on Monday, on the last day. They are just so jazzed. We've had wonderful support by artist ambassadors. That's also on my sheet. Susie Gauramani, who's an illustrator of children's books, started off with the crawl very early on and created a tote and created kind of a character for the crawl, and then said, how about we do a pin? And that's when it all just like went off, because there's something about, having that one of a kind pin, that one of a kind sticker that people get really excited about here in San Diego. And with that, and then social media, it's just been an amazing ride. So I have a lot of information in that PDF, lots of advice to give, but I want to give some time for our other presenters too.
All right, perfect. And that leaves Dara.
Peace, y'all. My name is Dara Landry. I am the co-owner of Class Bookstore here in Houston, Texas, with my husband, David Landry. And we've been around since November 2020. Great year to start a bookstore, or any business for that matter. Um, but yeah, we've been rocking and rolling. And I got the opportunity. I would say that I am the spark or the fire that started the Houston Independent Bookstore Crawl, but I'm one of the co-organizers. It is a lot of a lift, and I do it with two other bookstores here in Houston. But the chat is hilarious. Hey, Kelsey. But the Houston Independent Bookstore Crawl started in 2024. So this year, 2025, was our second year. And we genuinely started it, and we thought, we begged other Houston bookstores. We were like, hey, we really think we want to do this. Will this work out? And they were like, if I don't have to do much of anything, sure, we'll join in. So we originally started it with the ideal of wanting it to be a low lift for other bookstores so that it wouldn't have to be hard. So we printed out some bingo cards ourselves. We put all our store logos on it. The first year we had 18 bookstores, and we said we were going to do 10 cards for each store. And if people picked them up and wanted to participate, it would be great. Well, at the end of the first weekend that we started, folks were calling like, hey, we're out of cards. And it quickly blew up, and we realized, oh, we might need social media. We might need some other things. And so we have kind of built this plane in flight here in Houston, but it's been really fun. Last year we had 18 stores that participated. This year we had 24, and still several stores we're expected to include. I expect that we'll be pretty close to 30 for next year's crawl. We give the city of Houston the whole month to crawl. So they start from April 1st all the way to April 30th. It leads up to Indie Bookstore Day being like the moment. And some folks do take the whole month to do it. Houston's pretty big, if you hadn't heard. And so sometimes it takes a whole month. Some folks do it in a weekend. We had folks this year that did it a couple times, once by themselves, once with their kids. We've had folks that came down to the city to do it. So yeah, so we give a whole month. Because we do the greater Houston area, and we have a bookstore all the way down in Galveston, which is technically about 45 minutes away, but we include them in our crawl. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time. So we wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to participate. I think this year we tracked it and we returned. We got, I want to say, well, we got 1,500 bingo cards back. So we know 1,500 people alone completed it and turned in a card. So the goal is for you to visit. There are 24 stores this year. So if you visit 10 and you get a stamp from 10 or more, you can enter your bingo card into a raffle to win a gift basket, which is full of prizes from all the stores. And every store you do after 10, you get an extra raffle entry. So if you complete your whole card and do all 24, then you do the quick math, that many extra raffle entries. And so, yeah, so it's been really fun. It has been, we've slowly learned that it's taking a lot more than just a side project. This year, the first year we started in February to kick it off in April. This year we were like, we're going to start early, and we started in December. And now for 2026, we're starting in August, and we're slowly realizing it takes a little bit more time. But the city has embraced it. It's been wildly successful. And so I think that what I can offer to this conversation is that if you just want to figure out how to get started, then do it, and then learn to do it better later is probably what I'm going to offer mostly here, of just doing it. So that is the Houston Independent Bookstore Crawl.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, I did have some questions that we came up when we talked beforehand, just to make sure that, just in case these questions get answered. There we go. So I know, you've shared a lot of details, but for those who haven't started crawls yet, and want to, what would you say are kind of the most important things to get into place before you do launch it? Like tools, like for communication for the teams that are working together, you know, um, connections, anything like that you might recommend?
I can throw out one of the ways that we communicate with everybody is we can just have a shared Google Drive. And we put social media assets in there. We put the crawl guidelines. We put all the information that, if you were trying to tell a staff member, like, this is how the crawl works, here's a one sheet, just hand it to somebody. If your social media manager doesn't want to have to spend a whole lot of time putting together assets to advertise the crawl, here's some of those. So we do have kind of one central hub where people can download all the information that they need for the crawl, if that
Yeah.
helps with that communication piece.
And do you meet ahead of time, like in a video or a chat, to kind of get who's doing what? Or does usually one person volunteer to do a chunk of the work?
I can answer that and then anybody else can chime in. We haven't before. We have already talked about the fact that we need to this year.
Okay, perfect. Anyone?
Yes, I can co-sign on the Google Drive. That was super, super helpful, where we dropped all the assets the same. We also have a shared, just a huge email chain that just is going crazy the whole month of just, hey, what's this? Or these are where the questions are put. We do a Zoom call. We do 2 Zoom calls before the crawl starts that we try to get stores to hop on so that we can kind of relay any messages or information. The core majority of the work is from like the core 3. So we have a core committee, which is myself, Shanika Williams at Kindred Stories, and then Randy Null at Brazos Books. So we do the core of the work and then dish out tasks. This year, our goal is to create subcommittees, because there were a lot of places where we were like, it'd just be great if other people could lean into this. And we've had stores add in, like, our artwork was done by another owner at a store in Houston for our tote bags and the design of our bingo cards. And so we're slowly getting into the subcommittee bracket. But a lot of the work has been done by the 3 of us. And when you start off, that kind of might be how it starts.
Yeah, that's great. And I think like passing things on to people eventually will also add like a little bit of extra ownership for those stores, for their participation. Amy, you had something to add?
Yeah, I was laughing about the email chain because when we started when La Playa started, I think with the crawl, it must have been about 2018. That email chain was, you could kind of handle it, not anymore. And we switched, I believe, to Discord 2 years ago. And I have, yeah, Amanda's making the comment from Warwick's. I do have PTSD from the Discord like chime. I should have taken a screenshot. It's like almost subcommittees. Like we'll have, one conversation that's just about the tote, one conversation that's just about like how are the pins coming, all this kind of thing. And it's great. It's wonderful when you have 14 stores to have something that's not an email chain. There's a lot of day of, or I would say weekend of communication that goes on in terms of texting because one store might run out of a prize. So there's a lot of communication with texting. And we usually have a representative from each store who's like the main rep for the store. There are like, I would say there's a core group that has a larger amount of staff and have been in the crawl longer, let's say like the library shop, who kind of launch things and sort of are like the main point, the master people. And then the smaller stores just, try and catch up and do what we can to help out with everything. But I would recommend Discord or maybe Slack, something like that, especially as you start to get a lot bigger, and subcommittees for sure. Like we have to do that this year for sure.
Um, Somebody mentioned it in the chat, but another thing is the map or the directory of where the stores are. If your city's big, like for Houston, it has become essential for us to group the stores, north, south, so on and so forth. And we're adding an official interactive map for next year because we realized, shout out to social media, folks were creating their own crawl maps and then sharing them, which honestly, let the folks do the legwork. Let the community do the work for you. But a map or a directory of all your stores with consistent store hours, especially depending on, because we run ours for a whole month, we're bound to run into holidays, things like that. And so folks want to know. So I do think that is essential when planning your crawl to have a great directory with store hours.
I would just kind of add on that we do have on our website a store directory. Our crawl is a little bit shorter, and so I feel like we almost have the opposite experience with hours because a lot of people do special hours the week of Independent Bookstore Day or that week that we don't always catch. And so we've had times where we put the hours on the website and it turns out our hours are wrong that we have on there because we pulled it off their Google or off their website. So that piece of it and making sure you have that communication with stores if you're the one managing all of that can be a little bit challenging.
And that brings up a great question about like, do you have a central website that's separate from everybody's, store accounts, or do you have like everybody has a similar setup on the website, so no matter where they're going, a participating store has all the information, or both?
We have not, but we are adding a website for year 3. We are adding a separate website because we realized the necessity of it. But actually, for the first 2 years, we relied solely on social media, Instagram, and all the stores where we were posting similar assets for each store's social media.
Yeah, the
I
website
just
is, oh, sorry, Alice.
go ahead.
The website has just been great. This is a recent thing. We're indebted to Mysterious Galaxy for their social media strengths, and Warwick's as well. And but Mysterious Galaxy for sure put together this wonderful website, and it's so great to just point people to that and just be like, there you go, because there's a lot of DMs that happen, and it's too much for one person sometimes.
So I just dropped our website in the chat. And actually, if you see like in the top right corner, we even have like a map it where we have a pin for each store on Google Maps. All the frequently asked questions, just stuff like that. So it's more of a resource for people like while they're crawling.
Great. Another kind of connected question is, you all mentioned a lot of social media, getting the word out that way. Do you do any other marketing that you would recommend to folks, to the public?
Yes, we send out a press release to everybody at the beginning. 2 weeks before the crawl, we're all talking to our own individual press folks. And so news, TV, we try to do as much radio, TV, news, print as possible. So yes, we definitely do. We have a general press release that's in our Google Drive, and we allow stores to even personalize that because some stores in some areas have relationships with newspapers and smaller media publications. And so we allow them to create that as well. So yes, lots of press, all the press.
I would add to, again, kind of emphasizing reaching out to those groups that have already built-in audiences like the Silent Book Club. Like that was a game changer for us. We got a ton of people on the crawl throughout the South Puget Sound because of that. Also, if you have organizations like in our location, we're part of our Downtown Waterfront Alliance, and they put our events in their newsletter. So reaching out, not just to press, but, to those local community organizations definitely is helpful.
Yeah, we've been really lucky to have some great like in-kind sponsorship with KPBS, on radio ads, the Union Tribune with ads in the newspaper, and those really go a long way. It's interesting how many people come in because it's a range of age groups coming in, but how many people come in and say like, "Oh, I just heard about this in the newspaper," and I'm always shocked. but it's really important to have those connections, I think, with not just the media, but also with your local universities and those online social media groups are incredible, like the Silent Book Club. It really goes a long way.
Perfect. I had a question that just quickly lost my mind because I was like, oh, I wonder if you also partner with schools. That was one question I was going to ask. You mentioned, Amy mentioned universities, but do you reach out to like, grade schools and grammar schools that you partner with throughout the year?
Just to kind of let them know, like we have right above the store, the Point Loma Nazarene University, and we'll get students from there coming down to participate in the crawl. UCSD, of course, they have their own bookstore. It is one of the most like significant things to have them involved because they fairly new last couple years. They actually have provided buses,
Oh,
and so there's this
wow.
amazing thing that we got through them, where they provide these, lovely little buses, and the participants can, pay a set amount to ride around to the different stores, and it's just a game changer. It's wonderful, and it's great for people who just maybe can't drive, or for accessibility, it's super. So having those kinds of powerful players involved has really been amazing for us. So,
Yeah, mark that down as a goal, right?
oh, it's
Have a
crazy.
have
The party bus.
a party bus, yeah, a
Oh,
book
they
bus.
have so much
Yeah,
fun too. It's so
yeah,
great.
I bet.
It's
Yeah,
great to
great.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember what my other question was that was I think it was you, Amy, who mentioned that you get like sponsorships and author participation. Can you speak about like what you ask of for those authors or what they might receive in return for a partnership? Are you able to talk on that?
I'm probably not the best person to talk deeply about that, but I can tell you what has happened in the past.
Okay.
We had there's always been this idea of the ambassador, right? So either the ambassador who's like creating the artwork, like this year we asked for artwork to be, like, do you want to try and design the passport? And we got all this great artwork, and we voted and we chose, a lovely design for the passport, which you'll see in the PDF, but also an author ambassador. So we were keeping it local in the very beginning, and then recently the library shop stepped up, and I cannot speak exactly as to how this is done. Maybe Amanda from Moreworks probably knows better. Um, and they reached out and they got Dave Eggers to be the author ambassador, which was kind of amazing. And what was so great was he was lovely, and the feedback, well, there we go, Amanda's got the real deal there in the chat. The feedback from Dave was that he just thought it was fantastic. He had a great time, everybody was positive, and he thought it was a wonderful book crawl. So I mean, that's, I think start small. You don't have to get Dave Eggers right away. Obviously we built up to that moment, but the San Diego Library Foundation being behind that was really wonderful for us too. Yeah.
Wonderful. Allyson, anything to add? And I think Dara's in the background, wearing multiple hats as we all do. Wonderful. I'm trying to think if I
I don't
have.
think I have anything to add in terms of
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
no, we've just, we haven't made the foray into all of that yet. And I would echo what Amy said, like it is better to start small and then add than it is to take on too much.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it is a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Okay. Before I open it up to the attendees to ask their questions, you can start putting them in the chat if you want them asked on your behalf, or you can get them ready. But what is, let's say, one thing that you kind of wish you knew at the beginning of your time during book tours?
I definitely wish that I knew at the beginning that the lift that it could be. Like I think we gravely underestimated the popularity of it or all the things. And while I'm grateful for the amount of stores that participate, just even the organization level, I feel like our book crawl could have its own full-time admin. Like it just need the level of attention that it needs for it to execute. So I think that I thought it would be this really like cute little easy side quest type thing, but it is very much the main mission. And so I wish I would have known that in the beginning, but it worked out. It all works out.
So prepare. Very nice. Allyson?
I would actually echo that and say that you can't start planning it too early. We've always tried to be really careful because I feel like planning for Independent Bookstore Day and things in April tend to always land right around the holidays. And there's this feeling of like, well, I don't want to bug my colleagues during the holidays because we're all so slammed. No, bug people in October and November because if you're starting in January, especially as it grows, it just gets to be much, much too late. And I think we especially learned that this year because we were moving our bookstore between February and April. And so it just was one of those where a lot of the planning and stuff was also in the midst of a lot of the other chaos that we were experiencing. And I think, you know, even if it felt like it was too early, it would have been better because you never know what's going to come up or what things are going to happen.
I echo all of that.
Okay, so that's
Just
the
start
one thing
early.
that everybody wants.
Yeah, start early, start simple. Yeah, start with some good friends, good friendly bookstores on, yeah, start small for sure.
Wonderful. All right, so we had a couple questions. Let's see in here from the beginning. Let's see if I can find the first one. So Aaron asked, how far is too far away to include a store in a crawl? We don't have many bookstores in town, so trying to think how far out to look for other stores to contact. So, Dara, it obviously seems like you found the best way to do that is extend it. Do you want to add anything, or Allyson or Amy, do you have thoughts?
Uh, yeah, I would say the how far, I think it's knowing your community and how people drive and move around. I think for Houston, the reason it works is because I know how far Houstonians will go. Like, oh, we're going to go up to the Woodlands and take a day trip or things like that. So I think that it's understanding your community. So depending on your town, you're like, okay, well, in my town, what are the other 3 towns like? They go here for the water burger, they go here, like, and creating your crawl around the rhythmic patterns of folks in your town. What would be considered an adventure, like for us going down to Galveston, is like, oh well, we'll get dinner out on the beach, and so we can make it an adventure, and things like that. So I think that's the best way to kind of decide who you can add, what will look like a adventure as opposed to like a heavy lift.
I think for us, I remember in the very beginning, I believe it was only 2 days and we expanded to 3 days to give people a little bit more time. Also for, folks who work the weekends, we wanted them to have time on Monday to participate if they had that day off. I totally, yeah, you have to know your community, and, San Diego, we're all in our cars all the time. So it's a big deal. But I think right now we're at about a 25-mile radius, I believe, from La Mesa to Del Mar, roughly. I could have that wrong, but we have experienced people who do this on their bicycles, which is incredible to me. And we also have folks who come from Arizona to participate, which is so interesting. They make it a whole vacation. And so if that just starts happening where it just kind of gets bigger and bigger, then, you might need some more time. We have other bookstores coming up in our community now that are further afield. So we're going to have to think this through about how folks can manage it in 3 days.
And I think this is another area where it's maybe better to start small and add than it is to be too big. Ours, because the South Puget Sound is kind of geographically broad, and we run right up against the Seattle bookstore crawl, which does have a pretty tight radius. Right now, I think ours is 25 miles or 20 miles from the Tacoma Dome. It's a little bit further than that, like stretching to Olympia, but we wanted those Olympia stores to be included because, I mean, they're kind of, it's the state capital right smack in the middle of the South Sound. Um, but I think you just kind of have to, know your community and test people out. I will say it's the thing we get the most complaints about. Like the second people have to spend more than like 15 minutes on I-5, they don't want to do it anymore. Because we're not, San Diego or someplace like that where you do spend a little bit more time, driving from place to place. So that's hard. And I think the biggest thing is to gauge the length of the crawl with the number, your geographic boundaries. So that's why we do 2 weekends. And a lot of our people will divide it into like North Crawl and South Crawl, with us kind of being right smack in the middle.
Good. Kind of along the same lines, with the bare bones getting started and starting small. Alicia asked, "What is small like? Like, what are the absolute bare bones to start? How many stores ish? Passports, prizes? What would you recommend for the first year?"
Well, if you look at the PDF that I've got, you'll see a really kind of janky photo I took of the very first passport. I found it in my desk as I was cleaning out the other day, and it was like, again, 3 stores, and it was a 8.5 by 11. Just, you fold it into like a little passport size thing, and a place where each store could stamp, when the person makes their purchase. And I believe it was gift cards or something like that as the prize at the end. So you could start with 3. I mean, 3 sounds good. 2 seems a little funny to me. 3 sounds good. Yeah.
Oh, Valentina is showing your on the screen. Thank you, Valentina.
Yeah, thank you. And it shows, so that's the first year. And then this is all what I found basically easily on my drive. And then the second one I think was 20, I want to say, it should say there, maybe it was 2018. And then the bottom one, this was last year. And this is just like, huge, glossy, folding Dave Eggers. It's wild.
Perfect. And now we have some really good questions and comments in the chat that I'll read, just so everybody who watches it afterwards can see them as well. But I did have one more question kind of along these lines of getting started and adding folks. Do you all have requirements for like when stores reach out to you and they say, "I want to join your crawl"? Do you have like, is it an instant yes? Or do you say, "Great, here are things that we require our partners to have in place"? Anything like that?
Yes, I can speak to that because we are quickly running into. There are a lot of places that sell books, but they don't necessarily qualify as a bookstore. One of the first things for us is a lot of museums asked us if they could be a part of the crawl the first year. They were like, "We have a bookstore in our museum and we would like to." And so we really had to sit down and kind of create guidelines of what denotes what is a bookstore. Like we have pop-ups that are on our crawl, so it's not about the physical brick and mortar space. We've talked some about it being regional memberships. Are you a part of MPIBA? Are you a part of ABA? Being what it is, but we broke it down to whatever business they're going into, is it needs to be 75% of what they do is sell books. That needs to be 75% of the business for it to qualify for us as a bookstore. It needs to be operating as a bookstore, and 75% of the business they do is bookstore. So that was something we weren't prepared for. We were like, if you're a bookstore, you should know you're a bookstore, but you might have that one. So that is something we've been working on.
I would add, we also have parameters. We actually get asked by a lot of children's store or toy stores to be included on the crawl. And we do have as one of our guidelines that they need to be part of either their regional trade, like PNBA or ABA. And that's more of a philosophical thing on our part. Part of why we wanted to do the crawl was to convey this idea of community and bookstores in partnership with one another and working together. And we really feel like that membership in one of our book industry trade organizations is an important piece of that. We don't have pop-ups on our crawl because of the going back piece. So once you fill out your passport, you can go back and get 20%. And so it makes it a little bit harder to track some of those, pop-ups down if they're not really consistent pop-ups. So we've kept it to brick and mortar, and you do have to be a member of a trade organization.
Yeah, for us, it's very similar. You have to be a member of ABA. No pop-ups allowed at the moment. And I think a lot of that was because we really wanted to show the community, like, the difference between it. Like, we really wanted them to get into a brick and mortar store and be like, oh, this one's unique and this one's different. And this one does this and this one does that. And just kind of present the offerings that are here in San Diego in terms of brick and mortar bookstores. There is a financial, ask, of course, for all the prizes for putting those things all together. So there is kind of a barrier there, perhaps for some stores. And what the great thing about it is it has brought together this whole community. More and more people are understanding what is in their community in terms of bookstores. And it's really funny. Instead of like toy stores asking if they could participate, we've had local libraries asking. And so they actually formed their own, which is wonderful. There's actually now like a little library crawl with a passport that like popped up out of all of this. And I think that's just super cool. So yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. All right, I'll go back into the chat. So here's a comment from Amanda, and this kind of goes back to the size conversation. So Amanda from SLC here, our crawl is statewide. And we charge each participating bookstore $50 to be featured on the map we create each year. It kicks off on Independent Bookstore Day, and they have a full year to complete the crawl. The last bookstore they visit rewards them a prize of their choosing. So it's pretty cool. It's a different way to do it. Perfect. And then a question from Sarah. For folks in cities and areas that already have book crawls, like Austin Book Trail has 29 stores over 2 days, how would you recommend participating stores best take advantage of the opportunity? For example, types of specials, sales, freebies, promos, and or promos from a specific store.
Being for a little bit familiar with the Austin bookstore crawl, and I've like processed kind of workshopped some ideas with some of my Austin bookstore friends about how you guys get those folks to come back in. I know this year was kind of like competing a little bit with Indie Bookstore Day. I think like the ideal of, hey, if you come and visit us on the bookstore crawl, you can get a coupon to come back and use, a comeback incentive during that book crawl of like, hey, do this, or next time you come in and see us, receive this. I think it's always great to have a sale if you can, something on sale during a book crawl. But yeah, I would always just the incentivize to come back, right? So whatever purchase today, you get a 15% coupon to come back the next time is how I would make the best of it.
Amy or Allyson, anything to add?
I think that the fact that our passport, the prize is that 20% at every store automatically drives people back to all of the stores. But one of the things we also tried to do this year to help people bring people back again was when we had like really unique events that we had coming up in May or June, we were advertising those and pushing those to those customers. That way, they're hearing about the other things that we have going on.
Smart. Amy, anything to add?
I can't think of anything to add.
Okay. All great ideas. Here's another great comment I found in the chat from Natalie. The enthusiasm for the HTX book crawl was overwhelming, and it was a huge boost for our store's morale. So I think I wanted to point that out because that's really great to hear. Let's see. Passport. Okay, here's a question from Nick. What have you found is a good point for completing a store on the Passport? For example, $10 purchase, buy one or more books, just visiting and interacting with the store, etc. Did you change it from year to year while you gauged it?
I think we started with like $7, I think, way back in the day, and $10. $10 now. And I think that's just like a good basic. Also because we have some stores that are used that are on the crawl, and that seemed to be like a good number for it. What we sometimes get is we'll get families who are sharing a passport, or families who each have a passport. And so, it can get a little kind of in the weeds, especially the day of, when things are happening so fast. But that $10 just seems like a very even, straightforward number and the easiest thing to do.
I was like, we haven't, I was like, and this could be a learning curve that we're still trying to process. But we don't, to get your stamp, you don't have to make a purchase. You can go into a store and receive a stamp. I think for us, it was just the ideal of inclusivity and wanting everybody to feel like they could be a part of the crawl. Um, that year one, you didn't have to do anything. You come in the store, ask for a stamp, you'll get a stamp. We found that there were not majority, but some people were a little rude with that, and like, they were just shoving passports and work and staff people's face. Wasn't great. So we were like, okay, you do have to interact with the store in some way. And we looked it up to stores to decide how people need to interact with their store to receive stamps, be it a social media follow. Maybe I'm adding you to my email list or capturing data from you in some way. But the goal is that you do have to interact with the store in some way. We would hope that would be a purchase. And most people do, they do purchase, but ours is a little bit more free form in that. But we also have 24 stores also. Understanding buying one book at 24 stores, is difficult. So we try to be considerate of that.
We also similarly don't require a purchase at any of the stores, kind of for two reasons. One, a lot of it is about discoverability. If you know that my store exists in Gig Harbor, the next time you're in Gig Harbor, you're more likely to stop by, whether you bought something on the crawl or not. And then in terms of the discount, even if they only come back with that 20% discount, that's still a sale we would not have made otherwise. So for us, it's been much more just about, having people in our stores, getting to know the different stores. We have not had the problem of people being particularly rude to staff to get stamps with just stamps. But that's interesting to know of and be aware of. Usually we try to have somebody kind of floating around that day just in case. But as it gets busier, yeah, I could see that becoming an interesting problem to have to troubleshoot.
I just noticed in the chat that Amanda reminded me, like for families, because we do get a lot of families, and we really wanted to sort of make that happen more, like more kids in the store. We came up with a little sort of fun, like seek and find activity for them. So there's like, this year it was Oliver, our rabbit, who was on the front of the passport. You'll see him. And there was a lot of little other rabbit themed stuff. But, we cut him out and we hid him somewhere in the store. And when the kid would find Oliver, he would get some free stuff that we had, left over from other things, or stickers or bookmarks or like fun kid stuff. And I think we started that, I want to say a year or two before that, with another character, another kind of seek and find thing. And it's really taken off. We had at least in our store, double the amount of kids, like totally focused on finding Oliver and really bugging us to give them hints for where it was. And it was a lot of fun. So, you know, we try to find ways to have folks participate in some way um, that doesn't, you know, that they don't have to do the $10. They can, you know, they could bring their families and enjoy it as a group, or they could have the kid enjoy it. So we try. I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of prizes and merchandise that is involved in our crawl, that we need to have like a certain kind of financial goal to help with that. So, yeah.
Allyson or Dara have anything spawned from that? No. Okay, then I will, we're heading towards the end of our hour. So I have one more question. You know, we talked a lot about the benefits, obviously getting people into your store. You know, what are they? I think we mentioned a lot actually, but I wanted to give you all an opportunity to maybe share one unexpected benefit of doing and participating in these crawls, or something that you totally was, you know, really want people to know. Did I ask a question appropriately? That's always my biggest worry, is I just wander in my question asking.
No, I was just thinking like, what should I say in the sense of, I want to tell you like the moral high ground thing to say, but the truth is, I did not expect for this to financially do what it did for our store, and just honest to God, it was just a game changer financially. For when we look at the trajectory of our, you know, our holiday quarters and seasons, like to have this happen in the middle of April, you know, indie bookstore day is, your people come through, it can be a great sales day, but for us to do it for the whole month of April is our highest selling month outside of December. April is the highest selling month for us, and so the trajectory and the insurgence of cash right there going into summer, when you get that kind of summer slump, it's been a game changer for us. And so and I think all the stores on the crawl, there are some uses for it. I think everyone has said that across the board, that tide has raised all our boats, and it's been amazing. So that's been great, uh, and that's just the honest to God truth.
I would absolutely echo that. You know, there's the part of me that, you know, it's the snuggly answer. It's the partnership that we've created with these other stores, the way people come into the store talking about like what a wealth of unique and really cool bookstores there are in our area that they had no idea existed. And that's great. But also, April's bonkers. And if you do have a slow February or March and you know that this is coming, this year we saw a 67% increase in the number of transactions we had on Indie Bookstore Day alone. That's not tracing the whole crawl, and the crawl goes for 9 days. I mean, you don't have 70% growth on a single, like, that's just insane numbers. You know, it really is. You have December, which is fantastic, and then you have April, which makes no sense, but it's because you're doing this.
I mean, all I can do is echo exactly what these ladies said. What I really love to hear, though, is especially from the customers when they recognize the strength of community between the bookstores, they get a whole other idea of how bookstores are, you know, the bigger fight is against, and it's not between us. You know, we're all unique and different, and we all support each other. And they take that with them throughout the year. Like, we'll have customers coming in October and be like, you know, I found my favorite bookstore on the crawl, but I love coming to you guys too because you have this and da da da. And that is fantastic. That goes through the whole year. April is amazing though financially. It's incredible. And it really, really just takes the stress off of exactly going into that summer slump. And so I would try it for sure if you can in your community, and start small, but give it a shot and see what happens, and just build slowly, and it will come. I truly believe it.
I just want to add, like, to dovetail onto what Amy said about this idea of small businesses, particularly bookstores in this case, but kind of together against broader, outside terrible things. I think one of the things we saw this year that we hadn't seen before, and it's because we're in a different location, is how that mentality is also now kind of reaching towards other small businesses in our area. We're now in a part of our community where there's a lot of small businesses that I think sometimes do kind of like try to, one up each other, or, try to get, the same market share. And then this idea that, well, if we're all doing similar things, but we're all doing them in our own unique way, then it becomes a partnership, not just among, bookstores, which we're demonstrating, but also small businesses as a whole, which is also important for fighting those big, ugly outside influences.
Yes.
It kind of bleeds into our festival of books too, or any other thing that all the bookstores are participating in. They really see us as like a community. I mean, this is just such a like easy word to throw around, but when they see us as a group showing up as a group of supportive people, it just makes the customer just feel like jazzed. I don't know how to say it any better right now, but I see that. I love it.
Yes, now that we've talked about the financial gain of it, the community that comes from the book crawl, and in Houston, the reason we started it was because there can often feel like a lot of tribalism within book selling, and this ideal of this is my bookstore, it's the only bookstore I go to, I have a bookstore, but there's room for all of us, and we're all unique, and we all offer our own unique perspective. And so for folks to be able to come to visit all the stores and be like, oh, I see why all of you are needed, because you all offer something so different. And I can come here for this and I can do this. Has been a game changer for a lot of stores.
Perfect. Well, I think that's a great way to end today's session. So thank you to our panelists, Amy, Dara, and Allyson. Thank you to everyone in attendance who shared your thoughts and your questions. Before you go, I want to again thank our sponsors, Source Books, and to remind you of our next summer school session happening next Wednesday, July 16th at 12 p.m. PT. Same time, a roundtable on tips and tricks for recognizing and battling soft book bans. Make sure you register so you don't miss out. You can find all of our courses, including the recording and resources for this one, on the regional websites. And I think Valentina will drop Kaliba's in the chat. But that's all we have today. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Allyson, Amy, and Dara. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. See you next week.